Welcome to Mystara, where I have to ask the only question that is important to the topic today. Do you like big butts and you cannot lie? Well, if you do, then you're going to be thrilled, as we are talking about the wizard Gargantua, the little-known guy whose only shtick is to take normal monsters and create kaiju-sized versions of them. Much like Bargle, his story is scattered all over the Mystara bibliography, and also rather contradictory. So stealing what I could and heavily leaning on the vaults, it's time to look up to Gargantua. I'm Mr. Welch, and let them fight. Gargantua, of course, is responsible for the creatures called gargantuans, which are massive in size. A gargoyle he created supposedly towered over the Darrican Merchant Guild, making it at least 100 feet tall. His carrion crawler variant is known to be several hundred feet in length. As the name suggests, the creatures he modified are at least 30 feet tall, as that's the minimum size for a gargantuan category. There is no upper limit, though no creature standing taller than 100 feet tall has been recorded. Lengthwise, there doesn't seem to be an upper limit, but so far the carrion crawler was around 300 feet long, and that's as big as they've ever gotten. So you're looking at King Kong scale or early Godzilla, not the last Godzilla that was eye to eye with 100-story buildings. So Gargantua is not quite there yet. His first appearance where he was mentioned by name was in Test of the Warlords, where he sent several of his biggest creatures to steal a dwarven Forge of Power. Not sure why you would send creatures the size of buildings into a cave complex. That seems counterintuitive. But he still managed to get several gargoyles, a giant carrion crawler, and a troll into a dwarven freehold. He used teleportation because I don't see those things fitting through the door all that easily, or walking down the hallway, or getting through any of the interior doors. I'm not saying his plan was without merit, I'm just saying remember to take scale into account when robbing a place. What we know of the man Gargantua is limited. He has no official appearance, just a name. He could be huge and scary, he could be a normal looking guy, he could be 3 gnomes and a trench coat. We know he's 30th level and has mastered the magical alteration of creatures. He's quite good at teleportation, and that he's mad. Most people assume that he's just insane, but I prefer to believe that he got laughed out of the Great School of Magic or the Alphasian Wizards College, and he's just really pissed. And what better way to prove your theory was correct than unleashing a 90-foot-tall owlbear on your tormentors? That's the last swirly they're ever going to inflict. Which creatures are his are up for debate. We know from the creature catalogs that he's made 3 different monsters official, the troll, carrion crawler, and gargoyle. Whether gargantuan animals are his creation is never explained, but there are more than a few huge beasts running around Mystara. According to the 2nd edition Monsters Manual, he restricted himself to creatures that could be classified as aberration, elemental, giant, or monstrosity. Now, animals might be an early version of his magical experiments, and he doesn't consider them true creations the same way Rubus doesn't show you the refrigerator art he did at 2nd grade as part of his portfolio. So if the party is attacked by a giant Jagarundi, they can debate whether it's Gargantua's work or a copy by a lesser talented wizard after the druid who was trying to tame it gets stepped on. The restrictions on the creature that can be altered using Gargantua's magic is pretty simple. They have to be large size or smaller, or one of the creature types I've previously mentioned, and can't have an intelligence over 7. It can be assumed that the wizard prefers to work with creatures he can easily acquire on the prime material plane. A gargantuan earth elemental, well, positively terrifying, doesn't seem to be something he's interested in creating. He prefers magical creatures over mundane, and preferably carnivores. A rust monster the size of the Goodyear blimp could wreak havoc in a large city, but it's not as entertaining as a flying lion known as the Seergar of a similar size. When a creature undergoes the transformation, it gains several immediate benefits, apart from automatically qualifying for every roller coaster in the world. The creature's hit dice triple, so an owlbear goes to 21 hit dice, for example. Remember, if you're playing in 5th edition, this also changes the die rolls for hit points, so it goes from a D10 to a D20 per level. Strength and Constitution are increased by plus 10 each. Assuming the average die rolls for hit points as they do in the book, it means our gargantuan owlbear is going to have 409 hit points. The damage of the attacks are quadrupled, so the claws do 8d8 base damage. It also gains the swallow attack if it didn't have one like the purple worm, and if it has regeneration, the rate is greatly increased. The challenge rating goes up to around 25 depending on the creature, but as challenge rating is a terrible system that has never been properly implemented, you can ignore that. If you run across a gargantuan, you can cancel your dinner plans because you're going to be there for a while, though. The biggest advantage of gargantuan creatures you're going to have is shock value. The party doesn't even need to fight one. Just seeing a boule taller than the tree line in the distance will let them know that this is not a place they want to be for very long. Gargantuans don't have any real special attacks. They don't even have legendary resistances normally, but their large size and almost endless hit points make them immune to most of the more common control spells. A force cage can easily handle a griffin unless it's the size of Tom Cruise's ego. These things are the ultimate damage sinks. They make for great end bosses or bodyguards for people you don't want the party to reach just yet. Remember, their mental attributes don't change, so a polymorph spell at 4th level can easily take them out, because the 5th edition polymorph spell should have gone back to playtesting for a bit longer. But speaking of changing gargantuan creatures, the gargantuan aspect is more of a template than an actual creature. You can't polymorph into a gargantuan creature because all you're doing is increasing its size. Gargantua has a secret method of creating them, and it does change the creature permanently. You can't dispel the change. The creature was probably created at the size it is now. Whether this was through spells, alchemy, steroids, or the mother of all aerobics programs, it just works. Nobody has been able to figure out how to copy his success, at least on monsters compared to just normal animals. This fact leads a lot of people to speculate Gargantua is doing it for immortality, though his patron and sphere of choice is up for debate. Being a wizard, the odds-on favorite, of course, is energy, but I've seen solid arguments for thought and entropy as well. The creatures aren't found randomly. Wherever they appear, they are sent for a purpose. Usually the motive is just to smash stuff and steal things, but that's a classic motive, so who are we to complain? So far we've seen the monsters appear in Norworld, Darrican, and Thyatis, but other creatures have been attributed to him that have appeared in other nodules and nations. If he was responsible for gargantuan animals, then they've been spotted anywhere from Irindi, Minrathad, and possibly the Isle of Dread. A gargantuan attack on a city is not one to be taken lightly. Remember, before we discovered the Bessemer process, buildings that weren't built with steeples didn't get past 20 stories. A gargantuan troll will level a city very quickly unless stopped. Even then you're dealing with a Godzilla threshold level event. Gargantua as a character has always been a mystery. Hunting him down should be a challenge, as he's obviously quite intelligent and incredibly dangerous. Apart from all of his kaiju creations, he's still a high-level wizard who probably has a number of minions to protect him. Add in the fact nobody knows what he looks like or who he is, that can complicate things even more. Most people assume he's Alphasian, as they're the ones addicted to magical research and experimentation. Glantry might love researching new spells, but it's a small mountain nation, and people are going to notice when there's a displacer beast licking the snow off the mountaintops. Alphasia has plenty of wide open spaces for the gargantuans to run free, however. If you want to use gargantuans in your game, they already have the rules for them in Basic and 2nd Edition. Since 2nd Edition is largely backwards compatible, 1st Edition isn't much of a problem either. In 3rd Edition, gargantuan would be a template, so just increase the size and there you go. 4th Edition also had a template system to 3rd Edition, so no problem there. The issue is 5th Edition, when certain spells that were capped in previous editions suddenly had no restriction, and turning a 90-story tall rampaging castleberry into an easily swallowable goldfish is but one failed saving throw away, and from a mid-tier spell at best. I would say to remember to give them legendary resistances, but even then the party's just going to throw low-level spells to run out the resistances and then hit them with the big guns. Like how you never shoot lance shots at the battleship in Battlefleet Gothic, you save the powerful stuff until you've taken down all of the defenses. It's a crappy mechanic, Wizards. It's always been a crappy mechanic, even before you added it to this edition. The only response to a 4th level spell trying to one-shot Godzilla needs to be a very flat wizard. Hunting down Gargantua needs to be difficult. First you have to figure out who he even is. That humongous troll that is leveling downtown Minrathad City isn't going to be handing out his business cards. The players will come to realize they are dealing with a single source of the monsters, and there are restrictions in the type of monsters they will face, as they are never going to encounter a gargantuan humanoid or fey creature. This might discourage several players once they realize that if they gain his magical resources, their childhood crush is going to stay human-sized forever. Regardless, a few will still try and stop the guy that is leveling cities for his own gain. The party needs to find the pattern to the attacks, then track down the clues that lead them to Gargantua. You know, the boring parts of the Godzilla movie, because actually filming Godzilla is hellaciously expensive, so that's why you get an hour of humans you don't care about talking instead of watching giant monsters level Tokyo. Tracking the man down is now a matter of finding the proper location and breaking in. It might not be as easy as you think. Either he's going to be way off by himself, so he's got a dozen skyscraper-sized monsters roaming around in his front yard, or he's only making them immediately before he teleports them to their ultimate destination. It could be happening in a land that this kind of thing is completely legal, like Blackheart and Alphasia, or it could be in a desolate location like the Great Northern Wastes, where nothing can interrupt him for leagues. For a real thrill, throw in an adventure where they have to track down Gargantua because they need his help. Maybe Barbara Streisand has plane shifted to the middle of Oslo and is tearing up the place, and Leonard Maltin, Sidney Poitier, and Adam Smith were unable to stop her. You need a giant monster that can take on Mecha Streisand, and you need it now. The party's going to have to find Gargantua, find out what his price will be, and then decide what monster is going to face the insane singer before she destroys the known world. Then the party has to explain to the King of Osland why he owes one of the most notorious wizards in all of Mystara a full pardon, his weight in gold, and a 50 gold piece gift certificate to Sizzler while standing in the trampled remains of his throne room. Gargantua is a plot device and an adventuring hook, but he's a one-of-a-kind adventuring hook. Everyone else has normal villain motives. They want money, power, fun. This guy wants to create kaiju. His motivations past that are a total mystery. Maybe the process can be replicated, maybe that cost is way too high for the characters. For an odd twist of fate, he could already be dead, and the monsters were released upon the world when he died. If you need monsters to stall the party, a giant creature with hundreds of hit points will do the trick. Even if the party doesn't want to fight it, it can still step on their horses. Next week, we are doing another character study, this time with the biggest man-child in all of Mystara, Crown Prince Xandar of Aphasia. But until then, hot patootie, bless my soul. I really love that rock and roll.